All right, everybody, back for another episode today. We're going to continuing our Beyond the Lanyard series. This is episode 3. We called it Motorsports Madness because motorsports just happen to be involved, and every time me and JD are around, madness ensues. I don't know how that happens. So we're going to share a few stories with you today that we encountered or we recall to the best of our abilities, because we need to qualify, because we're going to tell a story here in a little while that we're not 100% sure if that's exactly how it happened, but we're going to tell it the way we remember it. So, and the gentleman that we're going to mention a little later, if you're actually listening or you check this video out, if you want to comment and straighten us out on it, do it. We're still going to tell the story the way we want to tell it. So, ain't that right, JD?
That's right, sir.
All right. So, we've done a little motorsports in our day. We've been to a few venues. So let's try to be real organized and structured and professional tonight, okay? I know that's hard to be professional for us, but we're gonna try. All right. That means don't laugh all the time, JD. All right. Okay. Let's start off with a venue that you and I both had an opportunity to work at. It's Barber's Motorsports Park. It's in Leeds, Alabama. Funny story was I mentioned this to a guy I work with, and I don't know what I was more shocked. I said Leeds and I didn't say Alabama, and he looked at me and said it was in England. I don't know what I was more shocked at. He actually knew that Leeds was in England, or I don't know. I was just shocked. All right, forget all that. That was a crazy side story. All right, JD, let's share with the listeners. You want to do an individual story because we have a shared story at this location, but you want to do an individual story that you ran into at Barber's?
So just to sum up Barber's for those who had never been there, it's absolutely breathtaking, beautiful there to begin with. I mean, you're in it almost feels like a golf course layout. That's how beautiful this place is. And so the races that I've worked, I've met everywhere between. I've met Michael Jordan. I've met some of the racers, some of the more IndyCar racers that are more notable. I hate it, but I can't remember because most of them are all foreign.
I'm actually going to share an Indy story because that was one of the better experiences I ever had at Barber's. But go ahead and hit them with a story, and then we'll sum up Barber's with one of the craziest things that could have ever happened to two individuals, me and JD.
So the one story that always sticks out to me, it was during the October, what they call it's their motorcycle weekend there. It's their vintage weekend, the Vintage Fest weekend. And I'd been working at Alabama football for about 14 hours that day. I leave Alabama, drive straight to Leeds, jump in an overnight truck with Miss Treba, and then she said, "Baby, you just need to go to sleep because you got a long day tomorrow." So I was out cold in this truck sleeping. And I hear the radio go off saying there's a fire on the paddock. And for the people that don't know, the paddock is where the more race owners, race teams, they all park their RVs there. So I immediately, from a dead sleep, jump up and go, "We got to get there." And so me and her go hauling to the paddock to see what this fire is about. And there's a man barbecuing at like 2:00 in the morning that I got woke up for because there was a fire.
People saw smoke and thought something was on fire.
On fire. So, yeah. He goes, "Well, I was just trying to get an early start on my smoking. Just put it out. I'm awake now. Now I can go back to sleep. I hope you're happy, sir."
Yes, we always talk about we enjoyed working those events, but stupid stuff like that used to drive me crazy.
Absolutely. Especially when you're already tired.
Yeah. If you put in 14 hours at Tuscaloosa and then drove to Leeds, Alabama, you were not in a good mood to start with when you got there. So
no, sir.
All you Roll Tide fans out there don't understand. Y'all might love the Tide, but there was days that we couldn't stand Roll Tide. but there was days we couldn't stand War Eagle either. I got stuck going to War Eagle a few times. My Lord, Auburn, Alabama. It seemed like it was in another country.
Yes, sir.
So you might as well let's go ahead and share the story. and call him by name so he'll know when he hears the video that he can correct us if we get this wrong.
So my buddy James Trantham, who
Okay, first of all, for effect, we need to know something about James Trantham. He was one half of the Alabama midget tag. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, not midget. Little person tag team wrestling champions.
He is a little person. I call him my big little brother because he is about, I think, 3 to 4 years older than me, but he's also smaller than me. So when we're out in public or we see each other, I always refer to him as my big little brother. And people look at me crazy. But James has got, I'll be honest, if everybody had a quarter of his work ethic, the world would be a better place because this man works. He'll work from sun up to sundown. Just come by and say hey to him every now and then. Make sure he's all right. And don't put him in tall grass because you'll lose him.
Yeah, James Trantham was an interesting character. Jay, I'm on one little side story before you get into yours. JD and his now wife and Mr. Trantham, little Trantham, decided to come to Oxford, Mississippi one day to help me with a football weekend. I have no reason, I guess, because they like me. I don't know why they came over. But anyway, Mr. Trantham was super excited to work with us. So I asked him, because that's the first time I'd really had an opportunity to spend more than 20 or 30 minutes with him. I said, well, James, what would you be best at? And he said, well, I can do just about anything. Well, I put him actually on an event that was off of campus. Well, he didn't have a problem with that. He was going to help get folks into a parking lot, get them parked properly, make sure they weren't sneaking in, that kind of stuff. And I said, well, do I need to come over and check on you pretty regular? Or are you going to be all right? And without blinking an eye or batting an eyelash, he goes, nope. He said, I'm going to work twice as hard as everybody out there. And I said, well, I'm glad to hear that. He said, because I'm half the size of a regular guy, so I got to work twice as hard to get there. I mean, without blinking an eye, dude, I erupted in laughter because I thought, dude, if this guy is this cool with his height and all that kind of stuff. But I can say this, JD is spot on. That was one of the hardest working fellas I have ever met in my life. Now it's time to knock the blocks out more. Go ahead and tell the story, big guy.
So I'm 90% sure it's the end of the day, and we're picking everybody up to leave. We're done. The night shift is coming in, day shift is getting out, and we're loading up. So James gets after being helped on the back of the tailgate and in the back of the truck, because that's what we use. We're pickup trucks. He goes, we holler, hey, are you good? Yep, we're good. So we go around to what they call Hilltop, to where some of the other RVs park. It's pretty much overlooks the whole race course. And we're going, and the next thing I know, James is gone. And we look back, and he's rolling down the hill as we're going up the hill. And I'm hitting the side of the truck saying, stop, stop, stop. And the whole time he's just steadily rolling down the hill. Bless his heart. But, man, it sure was funny.
Here's JD was actually in the truck that was picking him up. I was in a support vehicle at the lower part of the hill. Now, I didn't see all the rolling part. I did come up on him, dusting himself off and trudging back up the hill, and that dude was mad. I'm talking munchkin mad. He was hot.
He was so mad. I was like, how did you fall out? He goes, I don't know. I guess we hit a bump. I was like, what? How did you fall out?
But you know what, though? Shook it right off. Went on in, I think, because I want to say, I don't remember exactly, I know, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, especially Talladega, because people don't understand, when they go to Talladega to watch a race, they go with their campers or they stay in a hotel somewhere around, they come in, they don't understand. When we're at an event, we're at the event. Like, there's nowhere else to go. I remember one year, JD was kind enough to open up his house and let me go to his house and sleep. But when we were there from out of the area, we stayed in tents. We stayed in campers. It was horrible. And
every now and then we get lucky to get a bunk on the bus.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I do remember a couple of times where They had our owner had a touring style bus. He bought it from some country music group. I don't remember who it was now. Maybe Montgomery Gentry, I think he told us one time. Anyway,
one of them came from Garth Brooks, and the other one, I can't remember where the other one come from.
It had like 6 bunks in it, and sometimes we got the opportunity because as you got promotions within the company, you got a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
Or you were JD because JD would illegally drive the bus and didn't have a CDL, but that didn't matter. Just drive the thing.
Excuse me, sir. I did have a CDL.
I'm sorry. He had a CDL. It's just he couldn't drive, period. So, but you know what? If you'll tune in next week, I'll share an amazing driving story from JD that involved Oxford, Mississippi. I just thought about that story, and I'm going to share it next week on this episode. All right. Sorry, didn't mean to jump your story there. All right. So let me share a feel-good story from Barbers. Okay. I used to love working the weekend that you're talking about with the vintage motorcycles. Matter of fact, I got a chance to see like a 1921, I think it was, Harley Davidson, the sweetest looking bike I'd ever seen. My vintage condition. Yeah, I got out and raced it too, dude. I'd been terrified to race something that old, that was that valuable. But they have what they call, well, we call them Indy events. They're open wheel. It's the Indianapolis 500 style, sprint cars. And JD and I had the fortunate honor, and there was somebody else. I can't remember who the third person was. I know it was me and you. We got the honor of working the paddock access one year. Yeah, that's right. Paddock access. That's like top flight security stuff right there. And one of the closest groups to us was a group called Team Target. And Team Target was some of the kindest human beings we have ever met in our life. Team Target, because we did such an amazing job keeping them safe, they felt safe. They'd bring us food, they'd feed us. It was like, hey, but they should have learned. It's like at the zoo. It says don't feed the animals for a reason, because they started feeding us and we started expecting to get food. But anyway, they did a really good job of keeping us fed. We appreciate that. And we thought that was going to be the end of it. But, just before we left that event that year, I want to say the very last day of it, they were getting everything packed up. The guy that was, I guess, their handler, I don't know what you call them, the drivers. He took care of the drivers, is whatever that is.
He was high up on the team. I know that.
He brought not only myself, but he brought that guy right there, JD Austin, a mini helmet like they wear. It looks like the motorcycle style with the drop down, cool looking visor, the little mini helmet size. And we were just amazed and flattered that they thought to give us a gift like that. And then JD, being an astute individual that he is, he noticed something was scribbled on it. So we got to investigating. And it happened to be the signatures of all 3 of the Team Target drivers. And I don't want to mention them. I'm gonna, but I feel bad because I'm gonna leave one guy out because I cannot remember what his name was. One of the guys was a guy named Will Powers, who during that year that we worked at, I want to say it was like 2014, 2013. He was the #1 driver in the world at that time. And the other guy, ashamedly, because I'm not a big, I wasn't a huge motorsports guy until I started working with JD now. Was a guy named Helio Castaneves Jr. I had heard of Helio Castaneves because that's just a cool name and it's fun to say. And then the other guy, I do apologize, sir, whoever you were during that time. I cannot remember what your name was, but you were probably equally as famous at that point because Team Target was like the #1 team of that year. Like they won all the awards that year. So that's a feel good story. See, we come on here and we tell you all the doom and the gloom and grabbing testicles and all this kind of stuff that we talked about, and then you get a feel good story like that. I thought I better slip one in before we get out of here. So, all right. So that's my story from Barbers. I've loved working the Barbers events. Hey, listen, JD kind of glossed over. Let me explain. I'm going to try to paint a picture for you guys. If you're a motorsports fan, or even if you're not, if you're ever anywhere near Leeds, Alabama, which is how far north of Birmingham would that be, JD?
If you're coming out of Birmingham and going towards Atlanta, it's about maybe 25 minutes
Okay.
30 if traffic's bad.
If you're 30 minutes outside of Birmingham, you're gonna stumble across a place, a little community called Leeds, Alabama. And I'm gonna tell you, it's a lot easier to find the course now because they built a humongous Bass Pro Shop right there close to where you turn.
And a Buc-ee's.
Here, crazy story. Me and JD, I won't never forget this. JD was telling me, how to get there and how easy it's to find. And I turn off the interstate and I'm like, I am in the middle of absolute nowhere. He has lied to me. And when I find him, I'm going to beat the brakes off of him. So sure enough, I turned off on this little podunk road and I'm riding along and it's like out in the middle of nowhere. Like it's the most country place I've ever seen. And after I drive for, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes, I top a hill and there is this multi-million-dollar racing facility there. It's a road style course. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. The gentleman that actually owned the property and developed the course had some kind of connection to the milk industry. Like he was he's very famous in Alabama. I don't know how many of our other listeners outside the state of Alabama would know who he is, but that gentleman's name what was his name? The guy that actually was the owner and
Mr. George Barber, who he still owns and operates it.
George Barber. And George Barber had it was something to do with dairy milk and dairy farms.
He owned a lot of dairy farms, produced a lot of milk. They were one of the bigger milk producers in the state of Alabama at one time.
Yeah, don't they? They also, and I might be talking out my backside right here, but I want to say he has some kind of connection to Mayfield ice cream, doesn't he?
He sold out to them.
Okay, Mayfield ice cream bought them out. That's what I knew. It had something to do with Mayfield ice cream.
Yeah, at one time they supplied the milk to Mayfield, but
yeah, Mr. Barber was fortunate, and I won't say that fortunate. He signed a deal to provide the milk to all the schools and the whole southern part of the state of Alabama, didn't he? Which is a lot of schools. That's a lot of little chocolate milks and little white milks for
is
homogenized white and chocolate milk. That's a lot of milk. So I'm pretty sure from those proceeds is where this project kind of started. Because he was a big motor sports guy. He enjoyed all that stuff.
He did. He raced from what I've been told, he raced when he was younger. And then this was a dream of his that, he put all his heart and soul and money into, and now it's known around the world now.
Right.
He has
guys. I'm telling you, if you've never heard of Barber Motorsports Park, look it up, Google it. It's fine. It'll show you pictures. Pictures won't do it justice. If you're ever within 30, if you're 30 miles north or 25 miles north of Birmingham and you see the sign, it's worth just turning in and just driving through and seeing the place on your way to wherever you're headed. So
it's beautiful there. The museum is hands down. There's second to none. They have one of the largest collection of motorcycles in the world there. They also have the largest collection of I think it's the Lotus racing cars are there. The best, honestly, the Vintage Fest is a really good time to go, and then of course this weekend being Indy is a good time to go because they open up the downstairs part of the museum and they let you go down and you can see where they do the restorations to the motorcycles, to the old antique cars. It's a very awesome weekend, the Vintage Weekend, and actually this weekend, if you're watching it next week, it'll be this past weekend that Indy is in town, and they open up the entirety of the museum and the downstairs for the public.
All right, now, and I'm getting a little older, and my mind might be slipping, but is this also the location that we worked where you could go in and do a driving school? They offered a driving school.
Yes, the Porsche actually has one of the biggest. You can learn how to drive race style. Porsche has a school there that runs Monday through Friday. Every week they have people all around the world come in and drive Porsches. They also have now what we call, they have a smaller road course that opened up about 5 years ago now, that BMW partnered with them to do a BMW driving school there, or Mercedes driving school. I can't remember if it's BMW or Mercedes. So if I get it wrong, I'm sorry. But they have the Porsche Racing School, and then they have it's either Mercedes or BMW has a school out there you can come and drive on their little road course.
That's in Little Leeds, Alabama. You can do all that kind of stuff. How crazy is that? I mean, that's just a few minutes outside of Birmingham, too. It's not like you got to go overseas somewhere to do it. So
no.
All right. So as you can tell, he and I both love working events there. So do we want to we got to tell our one story about before we almost died there, right?
Yes.
We have to. So I'm going to let JD tell it because I'm the one that actually, the gentleman we're about to talk to was a well-known, famous football player, Super Bowl champion, that kind of stuff. Go ahead, JD.
So me and Wally, they put us together. We've been working we were working Gate 5. So that was my happy place up there, and all the race teams mostly coming in and out of there. But because we were doing such a good job, we got rewarded, and we got to go down to the opening ceremonies to help escort a certain former Alabama football player by the name of Joe Namath.
Broadway Joe.
Super nice guy. But man, it was hot.
What do you remember what month that was?
I honestly don't but all I know is y'all think I'm lying. I promise you, we were sitting down there on the track as they're doing the entries. We're waiting on him, and this is a good almost 45 minutes to an hour while they're introducing all the drivers, going through the whole shebang. And I'm starting smelling. I'm like, Wally, do you smell like I smell rubber, like melting rubber? What is that? Well, it just so happens that it was so hot on that asphalt that the bottom of our shoes started to melt and get spongy, but from the heat on the asphalt.
It was crazy. Yeah, all I remember was JD leaned over and said, "Hey man, you smell that?" I said, "Smell what?" He goes, "It smells like somebody did a burnout." And I went, "No, man, ain't nobody around here because they're doing a ceremony." And then I got to smelling it because I guess he planned it in my mind. And I'm like, "Yeah, I smell it too." And then we realized when we stood up, like our shoes felt like they were sticking to the asphalt. All right, so but that's not even the craziest part of this story, even though we almost died of heat stroke. So tell him about when he finally got through talking and he was going to get back in his little SUV or his Escalade, and they was going to whisk him away, and we had to help him.
So everybody knows that I don't know how he is now, but I'm pretty sure that Mr. Broadway Joe had he'd had him one or two that day.
Mm-hmm.
And as he was getting into his Escalade, he might have slipped and started to fall. And me and Wally just happened to catch him and help him back in his vehicle just in the nick of time.
JD cleaned that up and was real respectful. Here's sort of what happened. There's no doubt that he had consumed a few adult beverages. The craziest thing of all was JD's on one side of him, I'm on the other. We're just making sure he gets in the vehicle to close the door so he can drive away. Well, he kind of stumbles as he goes to get up on the little running board of the Escalade, and he kind of wobbles back. Well, JD grabs him. And then I grab his other elbow and kind of stabilize him. And he leans over to me and says, "Y'all got to give me a boost." He said, them knees ain't what they used to be. So, of course, we helped him in the vehicle. Well, in the middle of all that, about halfway through the stepping in process, I guess he just gave up. And it was pretty much me and JD just pretty much shoving him. Like I know he leaned over to me and said, "Somebody, you got to get into it. You got to get into it." So I ended up kind of almost grabbing him on his backside and kind of pushing him up in the – so it was not the experience, when people say, "Oh man, I met so-and-so, what an amazing experience." Not amazing at all. I'd have never thought in a million years that I'd have met Joe Namath. And then I definitely would have never thought that I'd had to cop the field to get him up in the vehicle. So That was and that, the funny thing was, he's joking about the shoe. I actually had to throw my shoes away after that event. It had done so much damage to the soles of my shoes, I had to get rid of them.
Yeah, I ended up actually doing the same thing. I think I called you the following week. It was like, yeah, I just had to go buy me a new pair of shoes. So you're like,
dude, we're not exaggerating. It had to have been at least 200 degrees on that surface.
It was so hot.
I used to make jokes about like NASCAR guys and all about how they're not athletes. Look, anybody can get in a vehicle and make that many circles at that amount of speed and that amount of heat. You got to be an athlete. You got to be. Because I don't know how they stand it. Because I spent 45 minutes on that track and I would have paid somebody to let me get off that track.
It was so stinking hot that day.
All right. So we got to segue from Broadway Joe now. We got to go to Talladega at this point. Because, see, first of all, let me back up a second. I don't know why Talladega events were not the greatest thing ever for JD. JD literally could walk to Talladega if he had to. I don't know about, not now. He's old now, but I mean, back when he was younger, he probably could have. What's your fondest memory of Talladega? I mean, it can be work related. It can be somebody you work with. What would be your fondest memory of Talladega?
Man, honestly, it was getting to meet Dale Jr. and just actually hanging out with him some. And I don't, the few times that I got to escort him around, and he was a very, very nice man. Loved his fans. That's always the one thing that sticks out to me. As far as just people there, that's one of the ones that always sticks out. Getting to do anytime that I got to do anything with Dale Jr. and escort him around was always fun and a good time.
Well, the times that I got a chance to work Talladega, I always ended up in the same place. I always ended up in the museum there, just kind of walking patrol, making sure nobody was doing anything stupid, that kind of thing. The guy that was the manager, operations manager, whatever he was, the guy that was kind of over the museum, he might have been over the whole facility. I don't know. One of them, I mean, absolutely one of the, I don't know. By the time I finally left there, because I got a chance to work, we worked 2 races, I know for about 5 years straight I did. So that's 10 times I got a chance to see this guy. By the time I left, the nicest guy in the world. Me and him got along great. Man, the first couple of events I worked for that guy, I'm like, I'm going to kill this dude and bury him out behind this building. I don't know what his deal was. Dude just didn't like anybody.
No, you're not exaggerating.
The last event I worked with him, because I told him, I said, well, it looks like it's probably the last one I get to work with you guys for quite a while. That guy actually gave me, and I still have it today, he gave me one of those vinyl style zip up rain Talladega logo slicker tops. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I still have it to this day. I wouldn't get rid of that thing for anything, because that guy from work, he and our relationship started to where it ended was like daylight and dark. It was crazy. It was the darkest night ever. The first time we ever met. But by the time it was over, like, he shook my hand. He told me how much he appreciated, my hard work. He, wished me the best, all this and I'm like, this cannot be the same guy. But he was. The funny thing was, that's been so long, I can't even remember the guy's name. I have his business card somewhere, but I can't remember what his name is. But my favorite moment ever at Talladega was when you, sir, you felt the need to take me away from the silence of the museum and the safety of our camp area, and you drug me into the middle of the infield at Talladega during a concert, and that's where I realized that Sodom and Gomorrah was actually in Alabama. It was not over in the Bible where it said it somewhere overseas. That's a lie. It was in Alabama. It was like Sodom and Gomorrah meet Honey Boo Boo. I mean, it was insanity. I'd never the debauchery that I saw going on in that brief few minutes. The funny thing is, I can't even remember who was performing. I was so awestruck by the carnival acts that were going on out around it. So do you remember dragging me off into the middle of all that?
Sir, I didn't drag. You willingly came, sir.
No, sir.
No,
sir. You said, get in this truck now. You see, you were kind of my supervisor at that point in that event. I said, yes, sir. And I gave you the old salute and I jumped in the truck.
So, man, I've seen that concert in itself will give you one or two things. You'll have nightmares the rest of your life, or you'll question humanity and the way the outlook is there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I didn't, and something else that just shocked me, especially about Talladega, because, we would go down in the infield during the actual race, checking on folks, because we had guys and ladies wandering around in there. So we were having to check on them. And the most insane thing was, it was like being on the deck of an aircraft carrier when those cars came by. That's just how loud it was. Like, I was amazed how loud it was. Like, you felt it in your body.
You are correct.
You would hear them come by. Like, you'd be outside. We'd be outside of the actual the actual circle, and you'd hear them, and you'd hear the crowd and all that, and it was loud. But inside, it was like being put inside like a blender and turned on. Like, it was there was noise coming from everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. And you did that 2 races a year for how many years?
At least 12, I think.
I know you worked at least, because you were working Talladega long before me and I ever met.
Yeah. That was one of my first things I ever really worked with Talladega.
They probably hired you. Probably were hired during the hiring session for our Talladega event.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they just drug you to places like Barbers and Tuscaloosa.
I thought, man, here's a great I can do this just here and there and make some extra. The next thing I know, man, that's like every weekend you're going. Yeah. Where are we going this weekend? What are we doing?
That's what I tell people. Even as a part-timer, I had an opportunity to travel so much. I literally could have done this as a full-time job if I wanted. If I would have wanted. At that time I didn't, because I had a full-time job. But and then, of course, little did I know, when I did go full-time with them, you sliced your chest open. You reached in and grabbed your heart, got a little blood on your fingers, then you signed a contract in blood that said, and I quote, "You will go and do every event that we tell you to do, period, exclamation point, exclamation point."
The end.
The end. Yeah, the end, with big scary letters. So, but we're sitting here. We're sitting here talking about this, and me and you both know it was one of the most amazing experiences we ever had.
It is, but Talladega is a beast in itself. Like, it is a beast in itself, because you just, man, I remember one night I was working nights, and it was about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was me and Michael Nelson, the gentleman you mentioned last week or two ago. And Nelson was actually pulling to me. He was riding with me, but he's like, man, I got stuff going in the morning. I said, hey, look, I'm, kick the seat back, go to bed. I'm just, I'll be making rounds all night. You can sleep, you can. So I'm making some rounds, and on the radio, I hear, hold traffic. We have a stabbing. There's been a stabbing. We need all available security and police to the museum parking lot. And so I just happened to be coming out of Tunnel 1, and Nelson pops up and he goes, did that say? I said, yeah, they said a stabbing. And he said, let's go. So, man, we take off to the museum. We get there, and it was a very, very bad stabbing. And they said the guy took off and he went around the museum. So literally it's two cops that are initially there, and then me and Nelson were like the second people on site. So me and him take off and try to find the guy. Well, by this time, the state troopers got woke up, and they were livid. because they got woke up.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're getting involved. They ended up finding the guy in the West Campground, and it didn't go good for the gentleman. I'll just say that. And the guy that got stabbed, it didn't end well for him either.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that memory sticks out as not a very good one. But it was I mean, dead sleep. Nelson jumped up from a dead sleep and he goes, "Did they say?" I said, "Yep." And he said, "Let's go." So we were rolling. But funny moments. So Danica Patrick, as a lot of you may know, she was a very famous driver from Indy, and then she converted over to NASCAR for a period of time. She decided one night that she was going to go to the Alabama campgrounds in the infield. Now, for everybody that don't know, the Alabama campgrounds on a Saturday night is kind of like Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
Yeah. That's actually a pretty good comparison.
So she thought it would be a good idea to go incognito, and that probably would have worked had she not brought her almost 7 foot tall, really humongous bodyguard with her, who stuck out like a sore thumb in this crowd. And she started getting just hammered with people, and it took us about an hour and a half to get to her, get them out of the campgrounds, because people were at that time, man, it was everything we could do to get her out of there without having to physically beat somebody to death.
Right. And we don't do that. We never did that.
No. Now, people fall all the time.
Every now and then, accidentally, we put hands on folks.
Yeah, and people trip and fall all the time. I don't understand how people can't fall.
All the time.
So, but that was one. And then there's a funny. We called him the Talladega tire guy. I don't know if he's still, but at one time, he's at every race, and you can't miss him because he wears a tire with suspenders and a pair of shoes and a clown hat. That's all he has on between him and the Lord is that tire. I think somebody did tell me he does wear a pair of shorts, but they're designed so much that all you think he's got on is a big tire, like goes around your car tire, suspenders, boots, and clown hats.
I never had an opportunity to see the Talladega version of Chainmail.
Oh man, but the guy was a super nice guy, but that's how everybody knowed him, man. He was the Talladega tire guy. So,
well, I'm gonna tell you what, brother. This is, and I wasn't a motorsports guy, and I wasn't sure how well this episode was going to go. But I don't know if the viewers have had a good time, but I've absolutely enjoyed every second of it. It's the reminiscing, man. They're taking us back to the day. It's just weird, man. It's just it's like we're right back in that moment again.
Yeah, and my favorite, and this is another thing. The guys the camera crews, those guys are the best guys to get into because they have a compound to themselves. All the camera crews and news people, and if you get hungry, you can go by and get something to eat there. And
media. Let me tell you something. And the funny thing is,
that food is amazing.
Hey, the funny thing is, especially at those outdoor events, any media tent, it's going. If you can get into it, they're gonna take care of you.
You got to always get in good with your media people because they will take care of you.
Treat them like gold, man, because they will treat you the same way.
And they are some of the best. But that brings me to Darrell Waltrip. I thought I was going to die escorting Darrell Waltrip. It was he just gotten through, and he during the race he set up. When I say the very, very, very top of the NASCAR tower at Talladega, he set up at the very, very top. Well, guess who got to escort him to the very, very top? This guy. Me and Nelson. Again, me and Nelson.
Michael Nelson, man.
Michael Nelson, man. And granted, I know I couldn't do it now, and I was younger then, and it still about killed me and him. We have to go down the front straightaway, up all the stairs, Me and Nelson was in front, I was in back, and just to keep the crowd, because he's got to get up, he's got to get to the elevator, he's got to get up there. So me and him are running point for him. I mean, and this man is in incredible shape, because I was about to die halfway up the stairs, and he ain't even started even breathing hard at all. And we get him all the way up the stairs, run him all the way to the elevator, get him up in the elevator, run. I mean, he's still in a dead sprint running. Get him in there, and finally he gets in there, he gets his headset on, and they start broadcasting. And I look at Nelson and I said, man, look, I just got to take 20. He goes, man, Nelson, not miss me. He goes, yeah, we finna sit down for a minute. I'm about to die. That was one of the longest escorts, I swear, to this day. That felt like it took an eternity, but it really only took about 5 minutes to run him from the front straightaway up for the grand where they waved the flag. We took him in there, run up the stairs to the elevator, and got him up. It was probably about 5, maybe 10 minutes, but it seemed like it took eternity to run that length.
Man, I'm gonna tell you, I was listening to that story. You told that story to me. You told me a portion of that story back a few years ago. And if you were in the phenomenal shape you're in now, it wouldn't have been quite so bad.
Oh, it would have been worse now.
You were younger, and you really didn't. You was just kind of, living that healthy lifestyle back then. So, look, brother, I can't thank you enough for coming on tonight. We always enjoy telling these stories, because the scary thing is we've lived them, and we're trying to get them out of our head, but we can't. They won't go away.
They're there. They're branded on me. They will be engraved in my DNA for the rest of my life.
I know. You know what? You'll do crazy stuff. You'll stop at a place you used to work an event just to show your family.
I did that.
I've heard that happen. So I will actually go somewhere that we used to work, and I'll just mention it, and like my family will just look and go, "Okay, whatever." I'm like, what?
You don't understand.
Yeah, it didn't have the same moment that I had with it.
Yeah, you didn't. You know what? You weren't there, so you don't even know. I know.
That's true. All right, guys. If you hung in here that long, listen. If this is the kind of content you enjoy checking out, I'm gonna ask you to like. I'm gonna ask you to share it. I'm gonna ask you to subscribe to the channel. Turn on those notifications, because every now and then we jump on and do just crazy stuff like this. Me and JD will jump on here and just tell some crazy stories. I know a lot of unhinged people like JD. So I mean, you're telling who's gonna show up on this show. So anyway, this is the end of the Motorsports Madness episode. If you guys tune in next weekend, the plan for the final episode in this little series, we're going to tell just a couple of our most favorite stories. We're going to probably lean a little bit more toward the college and university experiences we had. And then JD and I both are going to share some moments for some folks that we worked with that are no longer with us, that we had some really fond memories of, and we want to honor them by telling these stories, because those people were phenomenal people in our lives, and we wouldn't be the same if we'd have never met them. So, we would have never grown as the individuals we've grown without meeting those folks, because they were, I call them beacons. They were beacons in our career, with especially with the company that we will not name, the security in the industry. So if you guys check us out next weekend, that's what we're going to be talking about. We thank you guys for tuning in tonight. And JD, I guess I'll see you next week, brother.
Wally, always thanks for having me, man. I've enjoyed it.